This is a Yisaidistic Gemara. Gemara deals with, it's a really a Iker Gemara in Taruvos. I'm thinking of going through something with you before we do the Gemara, just as an introduction. Okay, as an introduction. I have something here. Hopefully, it'll make sense. I'll explain it to you. This is the Hakdama of the Aruch HaShulchan, the Hilchos Taruvos Siman Sadeches. So it says, Ifsaka Hilchos B'Gemara Pesachim Daf Mem Daled, the B'chol Tarakula Ein Hetem Mitzdaref L'Issa Levad B'Kotchem B'Nazir. B'chol Tarakula Ein Hetem Mitzdaref L'Issa. That means to say, if you have a kazayas of heter, let's say you have a kazayas of bread, less than a zayas of bread, and less than a zayas of isser, it doesn't combine. In other words, they're separate. There's not a taruvus. They're not mixed together. You're eating them together, but there is no absorption of the isser in the heter. So you need two. 1 + 1 = 2. One is heter, one is isser. So we say b'chol tarakula that it's not mitzdaref. It doesn't combine, with the exception of nazir. If a nazir eats bread and some wine, right, and the wine itself is not the shear, but together with the bread would be the shear, he'd be chayev. V'hu adin b'kotchim, as we're going to say by Karban Chatas. Aval tam ki'ikar, however, tam, the flavor that it has the din of the piece of isser, Behind lasais time shel issa, ki'ikra shel issa, to make the tam of the issa like, guys, this is what you know with shishim. In other words, if you have a piece of nevela and if you have a big pot of kosher meat, and the nevela itself is a minority. However, the flavor, it gives that flavor. You have to go ahead and be mevatel that flavor. It's machlokes between Rashi and Tosfos whether that's the Rabbanan or the Raisa. So that's tam ki'ikar. The difference being is by hetem mitzdaref l'issa, the issa's be'en, it's there. You don't have the shear unless you combine it with the heter. By tam ki'ikar, the issa is not even there. It's belua. It's mixed into something else. Aval tam ki'ikar v'hainu lasais timer shel issa ki'ikra shel issa, to make the flavor of a piece of pig like the pig itself. Amina b'chol tarakula, that you do say. Zeh plukta d'Ravasa, we have a machlokes of chachamim, imzel min ha'Torah, that's Tosfos shita, imid Rabbanon, or the Rabbanon, that's Rashi shita. Tosfos is masking fellas. If it's min be'nina, it's the Rabbanon. Only min be'enai mina is the Raisa, the Siyat d'Shmaya. V'nafkamina le'inyan safik. V'nafkamina was safik d'Rabbanon l'kula, safik d'Raisa l'chumra. Dimu d'Raisa as lina b'sfeika l'achmir, dimu d'Rabbanon halchan l'hakol k'moshe bar. V'yesh lanu l'var amahu hetem mitzdaref l'isra amahu tamka. He wants to go ahead and explain exactly what is hetem mitzdaref l'isra and tam ki'ikar. So let's stop right over there. That's an introduction to the sugya, and we'll get back as we go through the sugya. We'll get back to that, the difference between the two. So we're leaving chametz for Pesach, and this is really Yeridea. This is when you go for your bechina in the smicha. One of the simanim you learn is the simanim on taruvos, and this is ikka taruvos. So Amra Bavo, Amra B'Yechanan, we're on Mem Gimel Amid Beis, 4 lines from the bottom. Amra Bavo, Amra B'Yechanan, Kol Yisurim Shebet all Yisurim in the Torah, Ein Heter Mitzdaref LeIssa, one Heter can't combine with Issa, Chutz Mi Yisurei Nazir, except with the Issa of Nazir. Shay Amrei Torah, the Torah says, Kol Mishus Anavim Loisechelu, Kol anything soaked, the Anavim Loisechelu. What exactly does it mean? What does it mean when it says that Heter Mitzdaref LeIssa? Guys, listen to this. If you look at Rashi, 3 lines to the bottom, 4 lines. Well, let's do the Gemara. Iri says, Af Sa'or Bal Saktiru. Even the Isser of bringing Chometz on the Mizbeach will say that Het is Mitzdaref L'Isser. It's us to bring Chometz on the Mizbeach. We'll say Het, something that's Mutter, combines with something that's Asa. Says Rashi, Af Sa'or Bal Saktiru. Nami hetem mitzdarf l'issa. Chatzi zayis koimitz the sor, the chatzi zayis the matzah. You have a half of isser, a half of isser of koimitz. It's and that's permitted on the mizbeach. The chatzi zayis the matzah. The enu muravim, and they're not combined. Guys, here's the key: the enu mi'uravim, they're not mixed together. They're not mixed together. There's no tam of the isser and the heta. All you are doing is using the heta to create the shear of isser. You're using the heta to create the shear of isser. You have the wine, you have the bread. The wine itself, again, the shear of a nazir, guys, is a kazayas of wine, not a revius. It's a kazayas of wine. It's a kazayas. It's a achila. So now you have half a zayas of wine, a half a zayas of bread. You eat them together, you'll be mechayev. We'll say the heter, the bread, combines to create the shear of issa, despite the fact that you don't have the shear of issa. And we only say that, says Rebbe Vo in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, we only say that by Nazir. Comes along Z'iri is Mechadish? No. We say it by the Mizbeach as well. The Indian what? Bringing chametz on the Mizbeach. If you have chametz, half a zayis of chametz, and half of matzah, right? The one being asa, one being mutter, you put them on the Mizbeach, that heter of matzah will put it over the top. It'll put the chiyuv of that you're over on the isra of l's'olei saktiru. That's what Z'iri says. Guys, you clear on what that is? On heter mitzdaref isra, you clear? Again, we're going to do a whole blot of this. It gets back and forth. This in Tam K'issa. So again, heta, I got it alone. If I was a Nazir and I ate a half a zayis of wine, I would not be chayiv. I now take a half a zayis of bread and eat it together, I'm chayiv. The enamu ravim, they're not combined. They're not combined. And the only place we say this, according to Rabbi Vo and Rabbi Yochanan, is by Nazir. Z'iri says, in addition, we'll not only say it by Nazir, we'll say it what? By af sa'ar. Amoida by Nazir, but af sa'ar bal saktiru by the Isra of Chametz and Mizbech. I'll also say this. Kiman, who is this according to? Rebbe Eliezer, the Dorish Kol. This is like Rebbe Eliezer who dashed yesterday, Kol. Right? Ihachi, if so, you're telling me, like Rashi said, it's going back on before. Right? Kol. Ihachi, le'inyin chametz b'pesach nami. Like chametz it says Kol machmeses. So it says Kol sa'or. You're telling me that what? A Kol sa'or lo saktiru, and you dash in the Kol. By chametz and Pesach as well, right? That is here as well. We should say the het is mitzdarf leissa. Says Nachinami. Says Iri. I got two. We say it by Nazir. We say it by chametz on the mizbeach, and we say it by chametz and Pesach. The het is mitzdarf leissa. Ulafuki medabaya. The shita Rabbi Vo in the name of Rabbi Yochanan is opposed to the shita of Abaya. The Amar yesh haktara. The pachas mikazayis, right? There is haktara, right? If there's a haktara pachas mikazayis, kimashmon the haktara lav pachas mikazayis, right? Kimashmon that what to go ahead and burn something on this payach is not less than a zayis. So he disagrees with this. He would say that what that you would not be chayiv. Look at Rashi, Mashani einachinami, the chametz of Pesach. Why did you learn Sa'ar if it's who had known the Pesach? To exclude the sheet of Abaya, Damar, the Menachos, the Perikol Menachos, in say the Kachin. But boys, Yesh Hektara Bapachas Mikazayas, Kol Menachos boys. That's the name of the Perik. Yesh Hektara Bapachas Mikazayas, the Chayiv Behaktara Sa'ar Koldahu. Boy Sirif, you can be Chayiv for less than this year. So in other words, the reason why we learned it by Sa'ar is the fuki, the sheet of Abaya, that you don't have to be mitzarif the heta with the issa to mechayiv even without the tziruf. Yasser Rav Dimi, the Kamala Shmaitza, back in the Gemara, Rav Dimi was sitting and he said over the Sugya, Abaye Rav Dimi, again, Rav Dimi was accustomed to go from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel. Abaye was in Bavel, and Rav Dimi reported the Sugya of Rabbi Yochanan and said that the whole place we find Hetem Mitzdarf Le'Isser is Le'inyan Nasiris, and he probably reported Zeiri saying, Af by Sa'ar, by Mizbeach, and Chametz Pesach. So, and he said Abaye to Rav Dimi, what are you telling me? You're telling me B'chol Torah Kula the het is not mitzdarf l'issa? It's not true. But Tanan, we have a Mishnah in full Yom. HaMikbeh. HaMikbeh is a type of porridge, shel truma. Now we know what full Yom can go ahead, guys, and be metama truma. But full Yom is a sheni, and a sheni can make what? A full Yom sheni can make truma to the level of a shlishi. Right? Just look back at Reb Chanina Sagana Kohanim. You want to go back in time. Chazara. They don't seem like excited. Anyway, nonetheless, Vatran, Hamikba shel truma, if you have porridge of truma, v'hashum, and you have garlic, v'hashemen shel chulin, and oil of chulin, v'naga tfulyon b'miktsason, touches part of it, pasas kula, and he passes the whole thing. However, that's when it's truma. Hamikba shel chulin, v'hashum, v'hashemen shel truma, if it's the opposite, the main part is chulin, and the ancillary, the garlic, and the shum of truma, the nugget for you, and the miktasan, leipasa elamaka magay bovad. He's going to touch the place where only the place where he touched will become tummy. Vavinaba, makam maga amai psula, like batla loy tavlin beroiv. Why is it puzzle? The porridge is 60 times more, we assume, right? So the tavlin, the shum of batla beroiv. Vama Rabba Baruchano mat tam. What's the reason? Hoyel v'zor loikan alein b'kazayis. Since the zor gets malchus. Since the zor gets malchus, we'll say the place that he touches is puzzle. Now the question is, why is the zor getting malchus? It says Mehechi Dami, Lav Mishum the heta mitzdarf le'isa. It must be that what? That the zor can get malchus. The heter, the porridge, will be mitzdarf to the tavlin. That a zor eating truma will get malchus. So l'chayr, guys, this is not nazir, right? This is not sa'ar. This is not chametz. So we see that we're not limited to saying the din of hetem and starf is isser aren't only in those three scenarios. Here we have a scenario of truma, a mafurish mishnah in full yaim. That's mashma. The reason you're getting malchus is because the heter of the porridge is mitzaref to the isser of the truma. So l'chari, you see, it's not limited to what? To Nazir or to Chametz. It says, no, my kazayas, you know when it says over here, it's not b'shat hetem and starf le'isa. My kazayas, the kazayas b'dechilas pras. You have a kazayas of truma. In the Havamina fellas we held, there wasn't a kazayas of truma. How did you create the kazayas of truma? Only al yedei, the tzirif, the combination of something that was heter. They says, no, the Mishnah Full Yom is speaking where you had a full kazayas. So therefore you don't have to come on to what? To the din of hetem mitzdarf le'issa. You have the full share of issa. Again, hetem mitzdarf le'issa is I don't have the full share. And I need the heta to create the share. If you have the full share, then the shayla whether you ate it or not. And then we go ahead and digress into the sugya of what? Of whether Kedei Achilas passes the rice to Rabbanan. We had Masechtas Erevin. We discussed the idea of what's considered an Achila, the time it takes to eat a half a kikar of bread when you can sell a little bit of pudin, right? Then we had Achloikis, Chasanish, 2 minutes, no, 9 minutes. You know, there's from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum, we have tremendous Machloikis. What the share is. And of course, by Pesach time, when it comes to eating the matzah, we're all makbid to try to eat the matzah in a certain period of time. So over here, this Mishnah Full Yom is speaking about not that you had a porridge with a little bit of tavlin, and you needed the porridge to create the kazayas of tavlin of truma. In fact, you had a full kazayas of truma. And the reason why you're getting malchus is because you ate that kazayas in this time it takes to eat a half a loaf of bread. That's what the Gemara says. So now, it has nothing whatsoever to do with the sugya of hetem and starf l'isser. but in fact you have a full share kazayas. So my kazayas, think of kazayas be'achilas pras. Says the Gemara, kazayas be'achilas pras the rice that you is kazayas be'achilas pras the rice that you get malchus. I'm like in. It is. Says me hachi. I might pliger rabban aleha. The Rebbe Leza bekuta chabavli. We had yesterday a Mishnah, guys. We had a big Gemara, correct? On Mem Gimel Amid Aleph. We said the Tana of our Mishnah, who says it's an ashara to eat kulta chabavli, is who? Is Rebbe Eliezer. The Chacham said you're not over on anything. Now the question is, if you hold it that what? That eating kedei achilas pras, l'chayr you have a full kazayas of chametz in the kutach. You have the full kazayas of chametz in the kutach. So if you're going to tell me that the share of kedei achilas pras is a chiyuv deraisa, why did the Chachamim argue yesterday on Rebbe Eliezer? Guys, remember we said yesterday, who's the Tana of Mishnah? It's machlokes between Rav Yehuda and Rav Nachman. According to Rav Yehuda, it was the Tana of Meir. According to Rav Nachman, it was the Tana of Rebbe Eliezer. We brought in Rebbe Eliezer. He learned. He said nuksha is more. He said that the lav is more chama, and you're learning nuksha from the lav. And we brought the Chacham Shita is by Kuta Rabbi. There's no lav at all. Fred the Gemara. If the whole reason you chayit this kedei achilas pras over here by truma, why don't we say when you consume the dip called kutach b'chdei achilas pras? Why do the Chacham say you're not over in Nissa? If you tell me it's the Raisa, you should get Malchus. That's the kasha. In other words, that's the tushtel of this sugya in this parak. You always have to come back. Why in the world are you bringing this in here? The reason you're bringing this for this one line of Gemara, right? Why the Chachamim hold by kutach you're not over in a lav? If you're telling me eating a kazayas b'chdei achilas pras, when they ate the kutach, they were over on kedei achilas pras, and if it's the Raisa, you should be over in the lav and get Malchus. That's the kasha. That's the kasha. That's why we brought it in. Says the Gemara, Elamai mishum dehetem. So what are you going to say? Elamai mishum dehetem mitzdaref leissa. So now, guys, let's say you say that the svara is hetes mitzdaref leissa, right? By where? By truma and by chametz. So by kutach hababli also. Why would the Chacham say that you potter? If heta is not mitzdaref leissa, so l'chayr the heta and the kutach should be mitzdaref with the l'chayr, it's mixed together. So if I might pliga rabban leather laza the kutach hababli. The bottom line is, why do they argue by kutach hababli? If you're going to tell me even if heta is mitzdaref leissa, l'chayr, why do they argue? Says Rashi. He go down a little bit, but parallel to Gemara, about 6 lines up from the Gemara. Amai pliga rabban leather Eliezer the kutach. Nehi namid loy darshi kol l'Rabbi ruvoi. Could they don't darshan like on the Amid Aleph guys that there's a din of taruvoi chametz like Rebbe Eliezer does. Ha'achol miyah mi'isa kazayis b'chdei achilas pras. So you're eating kazayis b'chdei achilas pras. So what did the Gemara say? So you're going to say that what? That you're going to say that the reason is what? Is hetem mitzdaref le'iser. Ve'lamai svir lecha hay loika the rabba. What mishum the hetem mitzdaref le'iser u'bechat kazayis ka'amar delaki. Soif I might plug around a lot. Let's say the heter is mitzdaref le'iser. You should be chayiv. Another memad of shach. You should be chayiv b'kutach habavli. Either mitam that what you have a kedei achilas pras, or mitam that heter mitzdaref le'iser. Because you said by chametz that heter is mitzdaref le'iser. So the bottom line is on the brisa, on the Amid Aleph, and Gimel on the Amid Aleph, where the Chachamim said by taruvas chametz, e.g. kutach habavli, you potter. Why you potter? If you hold kedei achilas pras, the Raisa, you should be chayiv that the ate achilas pras. And if you hold heter mitzdaref le'issa, like you're learning from Truma, and right, then you should say that what the heter of the kutach is mitzdaref with the chametz kedei achilas pras. And just a side question. The din of heter mitzdaref le'issa we're saying is not only taruvis. L'chayra kutach hababli is the taruvis. L'chayra it's gemished together. I'm throwing the question out, guys. You're asking now, you should be chayiv mitam that het is mitzaref le'isser. Why should that be? L'chayre het mitzaref le'isser is a din and what? With the two separate entities. Over here by the kutach, it's together. Okay, anyway.
Rabbi, the kutach is bread. Bread is always considered separate, no?
I don't know. It could be Elahanech lekutach abavli, leave alone kutach abavli, the less be kizayis b'dechilas pras. Why? Iba ena, the kasarif v'kachalei, but l'daite it's kolodam. Guys, if you go ahead and you buy a dip, you never eat the dip all at once. So let's say in the dip you had a full kazayis of chametz. You're not going to be over kadechilas pras because you don't gulp it down together. That's not normally, right? V'i mishata kashata v'achol, and if you eat it normally, then less bakazayis v'cheachilas pras. Mimanav shach. Right, guys, listen. When do you have a cheachilas pras? Is when you eat in a certain time period, the time it takes to eat a half loaf of bread, you ate a full kazayis. Does taste an achila. That's the cholat kula. That's an achila. How in the world are you going to eat kutach habavli kadechilas pras? Mimanav shach. If you go ahead and eat it in a normal way by dipping, you're not going to eat the full kazayas and the share of achilas pras. And if you do it, it's like, you know what? You go to pomegranate, you buy a hummus, a hummus, you take the hummus and you shove the whole hummus thing in your mouth. No one does that. Well, I shouldn't say no one, but most people don't do that, right? It's not normal, right? It's not normal. So memela, leave alone kutach habavli. Regarding our conversation, leave alone kutach habavli. Nimtza at this point in time, guys, we have a machlokes. Rabbi Vo, in the name Rabbi Yochanan, says hetem mitzaref le'issa, where by Nazir, Mishras Nazir, you eat a little bit of bread, some wine, boom. Seiri added what? Se'or on the Mizbeach. In addition, he added chametz. Abaya is saying, no, it's bedin and kol Torah kula. Why? Because of the Mishnah Tful Yoim that says if you eat the tavlin of truma, which is not a kazayas, pashtus, it's being combined with the porridge of chulin, which creates the share of heta mitzaref le'issa. So, and now, if it's in truma, we can extend it l'chalat harakula. We're not limited to mishras nazir and kachim. So far, good.
Well, nazir, nazir and kachim, which is truma. Kutach habavli is a substance that's mutter on its own. Truma has requirements that go in of itself, and the same with nazir. So how do I mission kutach habavli, which is no special requirements? I get as much as I want.
Because we're going ahead and we're looking at the isser aspect of it. Nazir is asat. Nazir is obviously wine's asat to the nazir, right? And Sa'or is asat to the and Truma is asat to the non-kayin, and Kutach habavli is asat on Pesach. So you're looking at the isser aspect. In other words, you're looking at hetem mitzaref le'issa. Whatever that isser is, you are describing the different isura. But in Achinami, they're all asa. In Achinami, they're all asa. Guys, we're good. This is not a Daf Yomi sugya. Trust me, this is not a Daf Yomi sugya. But like every sugya in Daf Yomi, it is a Daf Yomi sugya. Then you just go on. Okay, but again, my main thing is you have the format. You're set up. Okay, so now you just told me that we're just digressing to whether ascertain with the share whether Kedei Achilas passes the rice to the Rabbanan. Eisivei, Shtei Kedeiros, Acha Shel Chulin, V'Acha Shel Truma. Guys, you have two pots.
One option is Tea Fusion Steakhouse on Quinn Road.
Siri just sent me to Tea Fusion Steakhouse. I have no idea why.
That was meant for Rabbi.
It's closed. It's closed. Eisivei. Steak.
if you call up these places and you can name the Parshas Hashavua or what time Shabbos is, you'll find out they're open through a back door.
Really? They look very close to me.
Many places. I don't know about T-Fusion.
T-Fusion look very close to me.
High-end steakhouses are really open.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know Bordeaux is open.
T-Fusion is open.
What? Okay, we're back on. Now, so now the Gemara is digressing to whether that Kedei Achilas passes the rice of the Rabbanan. Eisivei, Shtei Kedei rice, you have two pots. Achas Shekul Me'achas Truma. Ulfnei and Shtei Meduchos. In front of them, you have two mortars that have spices in them. Achas Shekul Me'achas Truma. V'naflu elo teich elu. One falls into the other. Mutarin. Why? We had this earlier, this similar thing. Shani Aimer. Because I say, Truma no teich Truma nafla, v'chulun teich chulun nafla. Now, l'char it's 50-50. This is a suffix. The only het that we'd have a suffix, guys, if it's the Rabbanan, not the Raisa. Suffix the Raisa l'chumra. Suffix the Rabbanan l'kula. The only way to say that the chulin is chulin and the truma is truma is to say that what? That maybe that's the Rabbanan. Because I past the Raisa. I skipped the line. Shani truma living enough with the armit. No, I didn't. Because I past the Raisa. Amayam means shiny. In other words, if it's a chiyuv deraisa, how could you possibly take a chance on eating misa b'dei shemayim? Guys, if you're a non-kohen, with the exception we have Shalom Kagan over here, I don't see any other kohen here. No, Shalom Kagan is the only kohen. He doesn't have to worry. Any one of us, if it's a suffix deraisa, is dealing with misa b'dei shemayim. If you tell me, however, if the Achilas passes the Rabbanon, right, then suffix the Rabbanon l'kula, and we're good. Amalei hanach l'tshumas tavlin the Rabbanon. Einachinami k'dei Achilas passes the Raisa. You know what over here? You know what the heter is over here? Tavlin is the Rabbanon. What's the only chiyuv? Reishis the gancha tiroishcha v'yitzarecha. Shum is only from what? Midarais from grapes, olives, right? And dagon. This is the one we had earlier. Two boxes, achashel chulim, achashel truma. Ulfnei and beis soyim. In front of them are two, and here you don't have tavlin, here you have real food. Achashel chulim, achashel truma. Naflu elu tech elu. Mitarim, why? Shani oim echulin tech chulin. Naflu truma tech truma nafla. Says v'yam k'zayis v'veichias deraisa. Amayam min shani oimer. L'chayr the same problem. L'chayr it's a suffix deraisa. Amalei hanach l'trumas b'zman hazeh the Rabbanon. Leave trumas b'zman hazeh it's the Rabbanon. Okay. Getting back to the sugya. Rabbi Vohu and Rabbi Yochanan learned from the pasuk of Kol Mishras Anavim Lo Sachelu. They learned out that heter is mitzaref le'issa. That a heter of bread or anything else will be mitzaref with the chatzi zayis of wine to be mechayev the nazir. That's what he said. Now, for the Gemara Kasha, I need it for something else. I need it for the din of ta'am ki'ikr. Ta'am ki'ikr is the main sugis in Shas are dependent upon the idea of ta'am ki'ikr. We spoke this out before. I'll repeat it again. We know we go after the majority because it says in the Torah by Psak Halacha, Achrei Rabbim Lahatos. You go after the Rabbim to go ahead and so if any case, if it's Dinei Maminis, so it's a bezdin of 3. The bezdin always has to be an odd number. If it's a capital punishment case, it's got to be at least 13 to 10. We know 12 and 11 is not going to work. It's got to be 13 to 10, as we'll see in the Sanhedrin. But the bottom line is, we learn out from there, right, if you go after the majority, So if I have two pieces of treif that falls in with one piece of treif that falls in 2 pieces of kosher, midoraisa l'chayra, we should say batal b'roiv. We say batal b'roiv. Now, what happens if you have a piece that falls in and it's giving tam, it's giving flavor? So you have a piece of chazer, and now you have the tam of the chazer. Do we say if you have the shear to be mevatel the size of the chazer, it's enough, or do you have to be mevatel the tam as well? So we say, guys, ta'am is ki'ikr. We say the flavor is like the main thing, and you have to be mevatel it. The flavor is like the main thing, and you have to mevatel it. Whether it's the Raisa, the Rabbanan is Machlokas Rashi, and Tosfos Rashi says the Rabbanan, Tosfos says the Raisa. And that's the shorish of Tam Keika. Where do we know Tam Keika from? From Mishras. We learn it from the Nazir. Fred the Gemara, how could you go ahead and use Mishras to teach me that Heta is Mitzdaraf Le'isar when you need it for Tam Keika? V'hain Mishras Lahachi Udasa, Hami Boy Le'lichidetanya, Amid Beis. Mishras called Mishras Anavim, Litain Tam Keika. Says the top Rashi, Lasleis Taimah Shel Isser, to make the tam of the Isser, Ki Ikroi Umamashai, like the Ikr and its substance. The She'im Shara Anavim B'mayim, if you go ahead and you soak grapes in water, V'yesh Mem Tam Yayin, and now you took out all the grapes, but in the water you have the flavor of wine, Chayev, you be Chayev. Mishras, soaking. So how can I use it for Heta Mitzdaraf Le'issa when I only have half a share of Isser and half a share of Heta? To say it combines when I needed to teach me the din of Tam, the flavor of the grapes are considered like the grapes themselves. And another would be Chayev for drinking this. Here we go ahead and judge the Chol Tarakula. Right? We're going to judge. In other words, it's interesting. The Gemara is going to ask at the end of the Gemara. I don't know if we'll get to it today, but by Hetem and Starf Le'Isser, Rebavo, they limited it to Nazir. Hashem came when it came time to Iker, they expanded it to Kol Tarakula. By Hetem and Starf Le'Isser, Rebavo, Rebbe said the only place you find it is by Nazir, nowhere else. B'Ze'i went ahead and extended it to Sa'ar and extended it to Chametz, but no other place. When it comes to Tam Keika, that's universal. That's B'chol HaTarakula. It's interesting ha'ara. Now, look, Ma Nazir she'eni suri esa'olam. 3 chumras, guys. Nazir, or 3 kulas. Eini suri esa'olam. Stam Nazir says how many days, guys? Shloshim yom. Chodesh Yiyah, right? It says Yiyah. Guys, Yiyah is gematria 30. Yud Hey is gematria 30. Now, Ve'eni suri esa'hana, even though the Nazir can't drink it, he's able to sell it. He's able to sell it. He can have enough from it. V'yesh heteli suroi, and if he wants to be shoyal on his naziris, he could take off the issa. So you have 3 kulas that exist by Nazir. 1, it's not forever. 2, it's not. It's only limited to achila. And 3, it's not. He can take it off. Tam keika, asaba tam keika, kalayim. When you have kalayim, let's say klei kerem, you plant chita soira and geffen together in one hand. She'isru yisraelam, it's always asa. From the time, it's always asa. The isuru yisana, and it's also asa b'hana. The ein hetel isura. Notice you have the hat trick. By nazar you have the hat trick l'kula. Here you have the hat trick l'chumra. By kalayim, the issa is forever. You can't take it off, and it's asa b'hana. Ein din sheyasa tam keika. It's not kal v'choyim to make tam keika. V'hu adin l'orla b'shtayim. Orla in 2 dins. It's issa hana, the 2 dinim. It's asa b'hana, and there's no heta. There's the ain heta l'isura. You cannot matter it, but it is not issa oilam because after 3 years it's permitted. So orla only has 2 chumras. Klei kerem has 3 chumras, and nazir has 3 kulas. Madach nazir has 3 kulas. It's not asa forever. It's not asa b'hana, and you can be shoyal on it. Nonetheless, tam keika, that if you have the tam of the grapes in the water, you're going to be chayiv. The nazir is going to be chayiv. Kalayim, which has all 3 chumras. Orla, which has 2 of the chumras, ein oidin will say tam keika.
Isn't Orla La'olam also? Because Perus of the year.
Yeah, I guess you're right. The orla fruit itself in the first 3 years is oilam. What he means is this tree will not be asa forever. You're right, Rabbi was this way, but the tree won't be asa forever. Now, so what's the kasha, guys? How can I use this to teach me hetem mitzdaraf l'issa when I need it for tam keika? And for the Gemara, money that tam is ki'ika, the Rabbanon. The Rabbanon is the one who holds tam ki'ika. Rabbi Yochanan Damak Rabbi Akiva. Guys, go back to the beginning of the share. Go back to Mem Gimel Amid Beis. Mem Gimel Amid Beis. Amar Rabbi Avo, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. 4 lines from the bottom. Kol Yisurin Shebetayra Ein Hetem Mitzdarf L'Issa Chutz MeYisurei Nazir Shayom Mitayra Mishras. That's according to Rabbi Akiva. That's according to Rabbi Akiva. Loiter Rabbanon, I need the Mishras to teach me the din of Tam Ke'ikar. The din that Rabbi Yochanan says over there, that Hetes Mitzdarf L'Issa, that's according to the Chachamim. That's according to the Chachamim. That's that. Now, hi Rabbi Akiva. Which Rabbi Akiva are we talking about? Elaim Rabbi Akiva the Masnisan Ditnan Rabbi Akiva Oimer Nazir Sheshara Pita B'Yayin, a Nazir that soaks his bread in Yayin, V'yesh Boy Litzaref Kidei Kazayis, and you have enough to be mitzaref to a Kazayis, Chayev U'Maid Mepasim Yayin, Dilma Yayin L'Chudei. Maybe it means only Yayin alone. Look at Tosfos. The Dilma Yayin L'Chudei, V'Loshen Litzaref. What's the lashon of combining? Gasi shapir. Kleimar. The tzaref hayayin habalu b'soichai. In other words, guys, when you learn lashon of tziruf, the havamina would be what? You don't have the share of wine. You need the pas to create the full share, and that's hetem mitzdaref l'issa. No. You have wine, but it's not combined unless it's in the bread. What the bread does, it brings it all together. But you have the full zayis of wine. So you have no raya from here that Rabbi Akiva holds that heta is mitzdaref le'issa. One more time. Maybe over here it's speaking where you had a full zayis of wine and you need the bread to bring that zayis together. And that's the lashon of tziruf. That's the lashon of tziruf. Now. What's the chiddush? Even though it's mixed, even though it's what it's mixed in with something, it's still chayiv. El Rabbi Kiva de Braisa. So Rabbi Kiva of a Braisa who holds hetem mitzdarf list. The Tanya. Rabbi Kiva Omer nazir sheshora pitay biyayin. A nazir that goes ahead and soaks his pitay biyayin. V'achol kizayis mi pas. Umiyayin, guys, right? Here's your raya. He eats a zayis. What's the zayis? Pas, yayin, and pas. What's hetem mitzdarf le'issa? You don't have the full share of yayin. You need the pas to create the share. Here it's mavura like that. So this brisa reflects on the shita of Rabbi Avo in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. That's the shita of Mishras of hetem mitzdarf le'issa. And the Gemara we just brought, that Tam Ki'ika, that's the Rabbanon. That's the Rabbanon. Good? Okay, so let's take a quick chazara. We're in a sugya of hetem mitzdaref le'issa. What does that mean? Guys, a huge chiddush. You don't have the full share of issa. But if you take the heta, you do. Says Rabbi Yochanan, that's only by Nazir. That chumrah is only by Nazir, nowhere else. Says the Iri, no, it's even by on the Mizbeach, by Lasakiru, and by Chametz. Says Abaye, it's B'kolat Harakula, because I'll bring you a raya from Truma. Okay. Now, Mishras, we're getting into a different sugya. I need Mishras to teach me a din of Tam Ke'ikar, a chumrah that is, even though I don't have the mamish iser, all I have is its tam, I still have to be mavatal that tam. I still have, and that's a din, again, machlokes Rashi and Tosfos, whether it's the Rabbanan or the Raisa, of tam ke'ikar. Okay, we have a kasha. How could you learn both from Mishras, from Nazir? Says the Gemara, it's not a problem. The Mishras that learns hetem mitzdaref le'isa is Rabbi Akiva. And the Mishras that learns tam ke'ikar, that's the Rabbanan. Question, where does Rabbi Akiva know Tam Ki'ika from? If he uses Mishras to go ahead and teach me Hetem Mitzdaref Le'issa, where does he know Tam Ki'ika from? Frag the Gemara.
Where did Rabbanan know had to stop Lizer also?
What?
And where did Rabbanan know had to stop Lizer?
Well, again, they don't have to hold it, but we'll see. The Gemara is going to discuss it. They can learn it from chametz. They can learn it from sa'ar, like safiru, like ziri. Now, for Rabbi Akiva, the Gemara is going to go discuss it anyway. For Rabbi Akiva, tam kirkaminale, yolavmi basa b'chalav. You learn some basa b'chalav, right? Now, what do you have in basa b'chalav, guys? You have the tam of the milk in the meat. You have to mevatel that tam. So lav taima ba'almahu, the absorbed milk is only tam, right? You take the piece of meat out. All you have is the tam. V'asa hachanami leishna. So over here also there's no difference. So he'll learn it from basa b'chalav. For Rabbanan, why don't the Rabbanan learn it from basa b'chalav? Why do they have to learn it from mishras nazir? You can't learn from basa b'chalav because basa b'chalav is a chiddush. If something's a chiddush, ain't by chidushai, we stay away from the chiddushim. Because why? They're unique to themselves. Umay chiddush, what's the chiddush of basa b'chalav, guys? Basar alone is mutter, and milk alone is mutter. Ubahadi adadi asar, and when they come together, it's asar. Kalayim nami, hayluchude v'hayluchude shari. Ubahadi asar, kalayim, any kalayim. Shadis, guys. Wool alone is good, linen alone is good, right? By you plant together, the chita alone is good, soil alone is good, the clay, anything, it's good. So therefore, that can't be the chiddush of basa b'chalav, because we find something else. If we find something else, it's not a chiddush. Ella the itarule kula yuma, guys. Listen to this. If you soak meat in milk a whole day, b'chalba, shari, it'll be mutter. It won't be asa. Bashale, but once you cook it, bishula asa, then it's asa. That's the chiddush of basa b'chalav. Okay, Fred the Gemara of Rabbi Akiva nami basa b'chalav vade chiddushu. It's taka chiddush. If you soak it the whole day, it's mutter. So how can he learn what tam ki'ika from a chiddush l'chala tarakula? El yolaf migu'ulei nachrin. He learns it from the absorbed iser of the nachrim from Klei Midyan. After the war against Midyan, Moshe Rabbeinu was mitzvah b'Yisrael on Hagolas Kalim, on Libo, and how to go ahead and take care of everything. Now, what does a pot have absorbed in it? Does it have the iser itself, or only the flavor of the iser? It has the flavor of the iser, and nonetheless, you see, you have to get rid of it. Why? Because tam ki'ikar. So we're going to learn out from Ge'ule, the absorptions of iser of the goyim. We'll learn tam ki'ikar. Says Marguli Nachrim lav time ba'almahu. It's a lav tam that's absorbed in the kli. The asa, zachanami, all over leishna. There's no difference. For Rabbanan who learn it out from mishras nazir, why don't they learn out from what? From Ge'ule Nachrim. Ge'ule Nachrim nami chiddush. It was also a chiddush. The kolnois and tam lefgam mutta. The garmina min nevela. Guys, what do we do in nevela? We give it to a guy, or we sell it. We give it to a ger, or sell it to a guy. That's only if it has a shem nevela. But if it's putrid, then we don't. So what do we learn out from that? That a tam that's putrid, a tam is nice and tam lifagam. It doesn't have a good flavor to it, right? Guys, this is the biggest heter. If you mess something up in the kitchen, if it's not a day old, we say it's nice and tam lifagam, except certain situations. If it's like a spicy thing that can go ahead and regenerate it. But aside from that, most of the times that you do something, you don't trafe up anything because of what, in terms of the food being cooked. Because let's say you cook a fleishika thing and a milchtika thing, the milchtika pot hasn't been used in a long time. Whatever's coming out from the walls is spoiled already. So says the Gemara, Gulei Vela, the Gulei Vela is nice and tam lefkam. And that's why it's a mutta. So it's a chiddush that it should be mutta. It's a chiddush that they had to go ahead and table them and kashta them. If I can't learn from them. V'hacha asa, and over here it's asa. That's the chiddush. Of course, all nice and tam lefkam is asa, and here by goyim is mutta, is asa. I said call nice and tam lefkam is mutta, and here it's asa. Rabbi Kiva who does learn from Ge'ulei Nachrim the halach of tam ki'ikar, kid Rav Chia berei Rav Huna. The Amar le'aser Torah el b'kidei Rabbas Yoimai. When the Torah said you have to go ahead and begoil the pots, there was only pots that were used that day. But as Hasis, you had to find it on the fire. You had to know that they were used that day. But if there were pots that were stored away, those you did not have to kasha. Why? Because anything coming out of them is nice and tam lefkam. Hilkach lav nice and tam lefkam. Therefore, it's not nice and tam lefkam. It's a bar yomo. For Rabbanon, Kedeir Bas Yomi Nama Lo Yevshar, Lo Pogma Porto. Rabbanon say Kedeir Bas Yomi, it's not possible that what? That wasn't poigim even a little bit. Okay, so right now, let's see where we're holding. Let's go. We have machloikis between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. Where do you learn the din of Tam Ke'ika from? Loit the Chachamim, they learn it from Nazir. Lo Rabbi Akiva, you're learning it from Geulei Nachrin. Okay. Amalei Rav Acha B'rei Rav Avil Rav Ashi. Midrabanan Nishma Rabbi Akiva, Milay Omer Rabbanan Mishras Litain Tam Ke'ika Mikanat Tadon L'Chol Isur Shebetayra. Rabbi Akiva Nami Mishras Lehetem Mitzarf L'Issa Mikanat Tadon L'Chol Isur Shebetayra Kula. Guys, a Gevaldi Kasha. Like Rabbi Akiva, the din of Hetem Mitzarf L'Issa. How many scenarios? Just Nazir. Just Nazir. That was the only one, right? Look back, guys. Look back. And Gimel Amid Beis. Amr Bavo Amr Yochanan. Kol Yisun Shebetayra Ein Heta Mitzaref Leissa Chutz MiIsurei Nazir. That's the sole exception, correct? That's the sole exception. Good. What about Tam Ke'ika? To learn out the Kol HaTorah Kula. So the kasher is. Why did Rabbanan say the din of Tam Ke'ika will learn the Kol HaTorah Kula, and the din of what? Of Hetem Mitzaref L'Issa will only be in one scenario. Why does Rabbi Akiva extend it to other scenarios? Okay? So why does Gemara answer? Amalei Amen Aleph, Mishum Navi Nazir v'Chatas Shnei Ksuvim B'Yim Ke'echad. Because Nazir and Chatas are two psukim that come to teach us the same thing. We've had this multiple times together, right? If the Torah wanted to teach me something, it would say it once, and you would learn out from that one thing. When the Torah says it twice, you know what it says it twice? It's limited to those two places and no other places. So therefore, since by Nazir and Chatas by Kochim, we have the svara of Hetem Mitzaref L'Isser, it's there to teach me that in no other place do you say it. Right? The Chatas Shnei Ksuvim B'Yim Ke'echad. Nazir Hadam Maron, Nazir, as we said by the Mishras, Chatas Maihi. Where do you see by Chatas? The Tanya. Kol Asher Yiga B'Bsara Yikdosh. Anything that touches what? A carbon Chatas has a din of a Chatas. So, fellas, if you have a Chatas, can only be, it's Kachik Kedoshim. It can only be eaten in the Azara. It can only be eaten by males. It can only be eaten for a day and a night. Let's say it touches Shlomim, which can be eaten by men and women, which can be eaten in all Yerushalayim, which can be eaten for 2 days and a night, right? What's going to happen? That shlomim is now going to become what? A chatas. Question, what is in the shlomim? The mamish chatas, only the flavor of the chatas? Obviously what? Only the flavor of the chatas. So now, the why it's not tam kika, I don't know this. We're saying it's hetem mitzaref l'issa, we're going to say over here. I don't know why it's not tam kika. I and the Rishonim discuss why it's not tam kika. The Tanya. Anything that touches basa yiktash. Yachla feel like bala. I might think even if it doesn't absorb. Tamalayim b'basara at sheyivla b'basa. Yaglish liyas k'maisha. Now watch him psula. If the chatish is puzzle, he tifso. In kishera he toichal kichomesh sheba. Only for a day and a night. Good. So l'chayra, the reason why Rabbi Akiva says hetem mitzaref l'issa is only in one venue is because it's 2 venues actually. Those 2 venues are those 2 venues are Nazir and Chatas. So now let's go back to this and see if it makes a little sense. Okay, so now Hetem Mitzaref L'Issa. Let's do the bottom. Hetem Mitzaref L'Issa. Kigoyin Sha'achol Chatzi Zayis Basa. The Chatzi Zayis Chelev. The Chatzi Zayis Basa. Chatzi Zayis Chelev. One is kosher, one is not. Biyachad, v'leibalu zeh mizeh. There never was one absorbing from the other. Ein haheter mashlim le'issa. The heter is not mashlim le'issa. Shenechshavinu ki'ilu achol kazayis kula shel chelev. Right? For rak be'issa nazir hadin came. We pass guys like Rabbi Yochanan. We pass like Rabbi Yochanan. The only place we'll say het is mitzdarf l'isser is by nazir. Memela, if you eat a half of zayis of kosher meat with half a zayis of chaza or half a zayis of chalev, it will not be mitzdarf. It won't combine because the din of het to be mitzdarf l'isser is limited to nazir, and this is not nazir. Now, Shem achul chatzi zayis lechem, b'chatzi zayis anavim v'vasachas loikolov. You get malchus. V'chein b'kotchim. Now, so too, guys. Now you understand by kotchim. Why? Why? Because chatas shnei kesubim abayim ke'echad. Chatas also would have that din, right? V'chein b'kotchim. The b'sham ribsa Torah by chatas. The Torah includes avaloi b'chol isurim. Geschmack, guys. Geschmack. V'tam ke'ikam mikri. The flavor of the isser is spreads into the heter. As I will explain. The enam inyan zelazeh. One has nothing to do with the other. The yachaliyos, the man the islay heter mitzdarf leisser, less like tam keikar. The one who holds heter would combine the isser is possible does not hold tam keikar. The heter mitzdarf leisser chamir le why? When you have a case of nazir, you have vada, you have wine there. Vada, it's there. You don't have tam, you have mamish, the wine. Right? Mamish, you have it there. You just don't have the amount. Afshein by kazay shalom. Hahetem mitzdarfa. Mashein came betam keikar. Ain't sham mamish shalissa klal. You don't have this at all. You only have the tam of the issa. The chen yachol yes, it's possible. The man the islay tam keikar, less like hetem mitzdarf lissa. The one who holds tam keikar could possibly hold that heta is not mitzdarf lissa. The tam keikar chamir length they should tam islam ispashe b'cholak azayis. Masha'en came by heta being mitzdarf, you don't have the full share. It's so interesting. They seem to be similar, but each one has a chumrah of the other. The chumrah of tam keikar is that you have the issa there. You have a full share. You have the tam. The chumrah of hetem mitzdarf leissa is that despite the fact that chumrah is that you have it be'en. It's not just tam. You have mamish it be'en. So you're not locked into saying one is contingent upon the other. Okay? And Be'ez Hashem, I guess we'll finish the sugya tomorrow. Okay?
Thank you.
The shul